Okay, it's all been happening the last few days, hasn't it? The drama's all been ratcheted up another few notches, and probably that's not very helpful that it has been, and this probably isn't. I'm not being very helpful, perhaps, responding to it, but I can't really resist. Thunderf00t released a video and I managed to let it lie. Then PZ Myers made a blog article, not responding to Thunderf00t, no, responding to people that had left comments on Thunderf00t's video, and I let that lie. But now Matt Dillahunty's chimed in as well, and in the words of Vic Reeves, I can't let it lie. Just too much that I want to say here, but I'm going to try and keep it all very brief and stay on point in each and every case. So I want to turn to each three, one in turn. I've said that the wrong way round, I think. So let's start off, let's keep it easy and start off with PZ. What's bad? Okay, it was perhaps a little bit out of sync to deal with PZ first, but I just want to get it out the way because I don't want to say anything that I didn't say on his blog. So these were the two things really. The first one was that he made this article as if it was a response to Thunderf00t, but then right at the beginning he says, oh, I'm not going to respond to Thunderf00t's rant, though how he knew it was a rant I'm not quite sure. That must have just been a kind of educated guess, I think, on how he's viewed Thunderf00t's other material in the past. He says, because I haven't watched it. I don't know whether he didn't have time to watch it, which is a claim I've known PZ make in the past, or whether he just didn't want to be sullied with an argument that he doesn't agree with, or exactly what it was, I don't know. But for some reason, he read the responses that Thunderf00t received, which must have took some considerable time, seen the kind of people that were condoning and championing what Thunderf00t had said, and did some research into that, which must have took some considerable time, but couldn't find the 10 minutes or see the value in even watching the video that it was all about. I just really fail to get my head round that. Some people have backed PZ up and said, well, you can talk about the people that are talking about Thunderf00t's video without watching the video. You could do. I could come online and say, oh, PZ Myers has just done a new blog on something. I didn't bother reading his blog, but let me tell you about some of the comments that were made. I think most people would find that a little bit strange and would perhaps be a little bit suspicious that maybe I had actually read PZ Myers' blog and that I didn't want to admit to it because I didn't want to discuss what was in it, so I would just be claiming that I hadn't read it. I found that all really strange. It's the same thing that Greg Layden did, by the way, with Ed Clint. He wanted to kind of talk about Ed Clint's piece relating to Rebecca Watson and Evo Psych, but he didn't really, so he just said, well, lots of people have linked me it, but I haven't had time, I haven't had the 15-20 minutes necessary to read it, but he did have however long it took him to think about and write the blog piece about the bits relating to it that he did talk about. Very strange way of carrying on. Let me talk about what PZ Myers' point was, then we can get off PZ Myers. Then his point was this, is that some of the people that had championed and agreed and condoned what Thunderf00t had said were rather extreme in their views. It seems that he's attracted some extremists here. And this is something that seems to be some kind of revelation for PZ Myers, which is that extremists will gravitate towards the closest opinion which matches theirs. It would come as no surprise, I would hope, to PZ Myers. It would come as no surprise to most people that most extreme right-wingers in the UK, if they want their vote to count, would vote Conservative. Most extreme left-wingers in the UK, if they wanted their vote to count, would vote Labour. But you can't really, if you want to really know about the Labour Party or the Conservative Party, the best thing to do is to actually listen to the politicians, to read their manifestos, not to see what particular band of extremists happens to register their vote, register their cross next to their candidate, so that if you find that some communist who will happily come online and say, I think all the upper classes and middle classes should be put against the wall and shot in the face at point blank range, that doesn't actually tell you anything about Labour Party policy, and you can't really hold the Labour Party responsible for that. If he wanted to hold Thunderf00t responsible for anything, what he could have said is that over the years, one thing that Thunderf00t has failed to do really is to come out and criticise the extremists who have backed him up. It does seem over the years that as long as the extremists are liking his videos and watching his videos, he's happy to leave it unsaid. We all know that he doesn't agree with them, but it would be nice, wouldn't it, if he just came out and said, actually, some of these opinions are really rather odious, and these are these opinions, and if you uphold these opinions, then really you might choose to champion me, but your views are very different to mine. I've never known a topic where he's done that. If I'm wrong in that, well, maybe somebody can let me know. That's all I wanted to say about PZ. There was plenty he could have had a go at Thunderf00t's video, but he couldn't be fucking arsed to watch it. I can't get my head around that. Let's have a talk about Thunderf00t. Okay, so of course Thunderf00t released his video first before PZ Myers' blog, of course, because PZ Myers was responding. Of course, well, he wasn't responding to Thunderf00t because he didn't watch it, but he was responding to people that had responded to Thunderf00t. So this is the bit that kicked it off, and it's caused quite a lot of consternation. So I really ought to sort of say where I stand on all of this. I will first reiterate something that I said in a video quite a few months ago now, and I'm more firm in this belief than I was even at the time when I made it, which is that there ought to be an harassment policy. I think Thunderf00t is wrong on this, and I think regardless of whether he feels a need for there to be an harassment policy, and I don't know whether there is a need, whether there is harassment that justifies an harassment policy, purely on practical grounds, if it makes people feel more at ease, if it allays people's fears to think that there is an harassment policy, then why not have an harassment policy? There are some reasons not to have an harassment policy, and here is one of them.
That it was so dangerous that they had to go around in pairs.
So at the conference, all of the skeptic writers who were there instituted a buddy system in which we always traveled together or with a male escort, and especially when returning to hotel rooms late at night.
Okay, so the reason I've played you that clip is because that was a clip of Rebecca Watson that Thunderf00t had used in his video, and I think that she was referring to a specific example as it stands. Thunderf00t doesn't give the context, he often doesn't, which is to his discredit, I've got to say. He doesn't like to put too many links, doesn't like to give too many, frame too many things in the way in which it was said. I think this related to a specific conference, and I think it related to a specific example of specific threats that she had received, threats of sexual assault that she had received, which I'm sure nobody would condone. But here's the thing, an harassment policy would go no way towards dealing with this. If somebody's going to sexually assault you or rape you in a corridor, then an harassment policy isn't going to make the damnedest bit of difference. I can't imagine any potential rapist is going to go, oh, bugger me, this harassment policy says that rape isn't allowed. Oh, well, if only I'd realised that, I wouldn't have been a rapist at conferences all these years. It's just not going to work that way, is it? You need different measures, somewhat stronger measures to deal with people who are going to commit sexual assaults. So that's why I say things like that are irrelevant to it. But it may allay some people's fears, and it may ward off some more minor kinds of irritating behaviour that people engage in. It is a legitimate worry, I think, that some people might get caught up in the net who don't deserve to be, who are only having a laugh, and who nobody who actually involved in it is hurt, but somebody's seen, because we have this culture now, don't we, that even if you're not involved, if you're offended by what somebody's doing right over the far side of the room, then your offence has to take precedence over everybody else there, even if everybody else is having a great time. If you're offended, nobody can criticise you for that. So there is this kind of problem. That's where it boils down to who's implementing the policy and who's policing it. But on balance, as I've said in the past, I think an harassment policy would be a good thing, and on pragmatic grounds I urge Thunderf00t to give a bit of ground on this. It's time to let it go. Let them have their policy. If it makes some of them feel better, then all the better. What I would say with regard to Thunderf00t on the positive side is that I understand some of the concerns here, and it's really rather frustrating, because it seems to me that a lot of people's frustrations are they see these fields of atheism and scepticism in the traditional sense, because some people are saying, oh well, scepticism can include anything. It might have traditionally included gender, politics and feminism, but as long as you're thinking skeptically about a subject, then it's part of skepticism. So that's fine. I can go to the next skeptics conference and I can go on stage and I can talk about whether hand-stitched cricket balls are really that much better than machine-stitched cricket balls? Or are they just making that argument to sell us more expensive cricket balls? As long as I'm being sceptical about it, that's fine. I think they'd tell me to piss off and never talk at a conference again, because they couldn't give a fuck. Scepticism is nothing to do with which kind of cricket ball is better. It's to do with the traditional kinds of things. Homeopathy, Bigfoot, UFOs, poltergeists, all these kinds of things. That's what it's traditionally to do with, and that's what people are interested in. And this is the problem then. When people then start dragging into all these gender politics issues and people say, we don't want to talk about them, fuck off with those issues, they then say, well, that must be because you're all misogynists. But I wonder then, if I got invited to talk at a feminist conference and I went on stage and I started talking about Bigfoot and trashing all the evidence for the existence of Bigfoot, what do you think would happen? My suggestion is that I'd get booed off stage at that point. But would I be getting booed off stage because all the people in the audience are secretly Bigfoot fans and they all believe that Bigfoot exists? No, it wouldn't. It would just be that I was gone to their conference, invaded their conference and started talking about something which traditionally has nothing to do with what their conferences are about. And that's what's pissed them off. They might think that Bigfoot talks are fine in their place. I certainly have no problem with gender politics, and many of the arguments that feminists bring up have lots and lots of important things to say. They're things that really need to be discussed. They're not just things to be pushed under the table, but they're just fine in their place. It doesn't mean that every single thing has to be about gender politics across the globe. So that's the problem that I see it, and it's one of these examples which I'll talk about with the Matt Dillahunty thing of people assuming the worst. If you don't want people at these conferences to talk about feminism, then you must be a misogynistic bigot. Matt Dillahunty doesn't like that way of thinking. Let's listen to Matt Dillahunty now and move on to Matt. Okay, well, I quite liked Matt Dillahunty's video. I thought he's quite moderate, maybe a little bit more nuanced than some of the contributions that we've had from some of the other protagonists in this dispute. I kind of like Matt Dillahunty. I get the feeling he doesn't like me, that he thinks I'm a bit of a cock, to be quite honest, but I don't base whether I like somebody else on whether or not they like me. I'm sure there's some people that like me that I don't like. Matt Dillahunty is one of these people that I've got some time for, regardless of what he thinks of me. But he does get one bit a little bit wrong, and it's to do with booth babe. So let me play you Matt, and then I'll talk about that.
Now, I have no objection to booth babes. Seen them at other conventions. I like attractive women. So does my wife. And so, by the way, do a lot of the feminists that I interact with in the community. These are all sex-positive people who are just fine and overjoyed, in fact, by sex and sexual encounters and sexual jokes and all sorts of stuff.
You know, Matt might be right, and all these people might be right, that booth babes may not be appropriate for this kind of conference. It seems a bit problematic talking about sexualised clothing. Does that mean that if you're showing a bit of cleavage, that's sexualised clothing? Does that mean we all have to wear burqas? I'm not sure quite how far down the line you go there, but again, if reasonable people are pleasing a policy, you'll get some reasonable outcomes there. I don't really have a problem with that. The problem I have with Matt is this suggestion that he makes that all these people, these sex-positive A+ers and FTBers, wouldn't have a problem with booth babes and would view them in the same way that he would view it or his wife would view it. I don't think that he could be any more wrong if he tried. I accept that many of these people are sex-positive feminists, but they have a view that using women's bodies to sell products is objectifying women, that it's a symptom of patriarchy, and it's something that we should rail against with every bone and sinew in our body. It wouldn't go over well with people like, certainly with Ophelia Benson. I can prove that with a link. I don't think Stephanie Svan would be too keen on it. You could try bringing the subject up on the Atheism Plus forum, but if you do, by Christ, make sure you include a trigger warning in the title, because the amount of shit that you would get, Matt, if you made that argument there would make the shit that you got of your last venture or foray into the Atheism Plus forum seem like small fry. There is no way that they would accept booth babes purely on a hypothetical basis, never mind at a specific atheist or skeptic conference. Now, what Matt does go on to talk about, and I agree with him with this, is taking people in good faith. So let me give you a couple of examples of Matt talking about being taken in good faith.
And yet, that post was made, and there was a quick banning of 15 or 20 people. And then I realized that this wasn't me, and it wasn't the type of thing I wanted to do, and that I'd done it the wrong way, and I had phrased things in a way that was confusing. I unblocked everybody I had ever blocked, just to make sure that I got everybody who had been blocked that day.
Okay, so I'll just mention this one first. I think Thunderf00t had called Matt Dillahunty out for his Facebook blocking here. Matt Dillahunty, he looks totally honest to me. He comes on his video, he's explained, yes, I did do it, I regretted doing it, and I unblocked people. And you know what happened? Quite a lot of comments in his post took him in bad faith. They assumed the worst. Rather than taking him at face value, they thought, no, what possible nefarious reason could he have had for saying what he's saying now? He must be full of bullshit. We're against him. Let's see the worst we possibly can in what he's done there. With that in mind, listen to this next clip of Matt.
And contributing to this culture of creating boogeymen. Oh, look, it's these evil feminists. Who are these evil feminists? I mean, I was included in the video. I'm assuming I'm an evil feminist. Exactly what have I done that's evil? What am I advocating that is a violation of your rights in any way?
When you think about what Matt says at the start of this clip, contributing or contributing, if you're English and you pronounce your words right, to this culture of creating boogeyman. I couldn't agree more with what Matt has to say here. But the thing is that it's happening on both sides. He's right that people are doing this. People are looking at people like Matt, who claims, yes, I'm a feminist, and looking at it in the worst possible light that you can do so. But isn't that exactly what's happened on both sides? I'm sick of the number of times I've been told that I'm a bigot, that I'm a misogynist. PC Myers has made it very clear that he considers me scum. Scum is what he considers me. Aren't both sides doing this? Isn't this the problem, Matt? That what we're doing is we are creating boogeymen. We are taking people's positions and throwing them as far to one side as we possibly can. We're caricaturing what it is that people actually believed, deliberately polarizing the argument to try and make our own position look better. I think Matt Dillahunty has hit the nail on the head here. But he's seeing it purely from his side. Whoa, I'm mild-mannered, Matt. My position isn't half as extreme as you are making it out to be. But at the same time, he is viewing everybody else in the worst possible light, including when he blocked me on Twitter because he went through a few of my tweets and saw that I opposed Atheism Plus. So what does he do? He fears the worst, doesn't he? He assumes that I'm a bigot and a misogynist and a hater for having done so. Maybe we all just need to get a little bit of a grip on here and start holding people accountable for what they have actually said and not for what we wish they'd said to help us make our points. Pretty much all I wanted to say on these 3 videos. Thank you for watching if you've got this far, and bye for now. And have you noticed the new quality? I've got a new webcam. Bye for now.